Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the stage, coming to the RPT stage. I know you've seen him on Instagram. I know you've seen the tweets. Big accounts be retweeting him. My boy stays viral. He's working with everybody who's somebody. I even heard the orange one himself is a fan. We have Mr. Jobob in the building.
What is going on, guys?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Applauso. Yes.
Applauso.
Great, brother. Hey, thank you, man. We love your stuff. We do great content.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. What you do is so important for the type of red pilling that we aim to do. Like,
Yeah.
it's infotainment, like how you present your stuff. How did you get into like having your angle and having your voice on politics?
Yeah, dude. Well, first, let me back up even further than that, because I feel like anybody listening is going to go like, did Chingo mispronounce this guy's Jobob? Is that his real name? Yeah, no, it is. It's legally on my birth certificate. One grandpa was Joe, the other one was Bob. And so anybody who might be confused about that, my parents couldn't figure out which one to name me after. And so they decided both, which is how you got this brown guy with the hillbilly Alabama backwoods name. But in terms of how I got into politics, it's kind of interesting. I've been on the other side of the political spectrum, not like a liberal side, but the other side of the running campaigns. I was a consultant for like 10 years. Running different political races. Probably most notably, I ran a guy for governor against Gavin Newsom in 2018 in California. Did not go the way we had hoped, but I've been on that side of the aisle, not that side of the aisle, that side of the political spectrum for a long time. And I just recently got into this commentating thing because of the reasons, like kind of you were stating. I saw, well, a lot of people are upset, and I get that. A lot of people are very frustrated, and I understand that. But at the same time, you look at the demographics of people voting in the United States and think about this. Most people in this country don't vote, which is a weird thing to think about. So there's a bunch of people kind of out there in the ether. And the idea is, how do we get a hold of them for this freedom-oriented side of thinking? And my thought was, let's be funny. Let's try and make light of these situations, because there's nothing really out there like that with my perspective. And so that was kind of the decision to kind of go, and kind of where I get my whole basis of analysis from, is I've been in politics for a long time, but also tried to recognize that there's this big group of people that's just being unmet. And if we can do that by making some people laugh, and I love that word infotainment, that's how I would like to do it.
Where you from originally?
California, Southern California. I lived in Southern California my whole life, Inland Empire. If you know Southern California,
the
very
IE.
Well, so
The IE,
man.
big
So
dot.
What's up?
Was that the 909 over there by Rancho Cucamonga?
I lived in Rancho. When my wife and I first got married, we lived in Rancho Cucamonga for like 2-3 years, and I've grown up here, and also have been watching California politics for a long time. And people around the country, they know California's crazy. I don't think they know the extent of it. Right. I don't think they quite understand how crazy it actually is. So, bringing light to that is something important.
You were keeping an eye on SoCal politics. I've been keeping an eye on SoCal cheeseburgers. People sleep on Cali burger shop, like those old school little nook and cranny burger shops. So you were just saying that a lot of folks don't know how crazy California politics, how crazy it is.
Yeah.
What I tell folks is that as soon as you get out of like LA County or those big blue hubs or big blue cities, right away, it's like, oh shit, this is just kind of like Texas. As soon as you get out of the blue cities, you start seeing the USA hats.
Well, so look at a heat map. Have you ever brought up a heat map of California and who votes where? Like the deep blue parts are like these little tiny places in LA County and then like San Francisco County. And then the rest of the state is like bright red. But obviously there's not as many people that live there. So, the voting goes the way the voting goes. But that's why I think there's a lot of people behind this divide California up into at least 2 states, maybe even 3. I kind of tend to be a fan of that. I think that'd be an interesting. It would never happen, by the way. The way California's run right now, there's no way that Democrats in control would ever allow that to happen. But it is an interesting, wrinkle when you're talking about the different politics that exist in different geographic locations in California.
Yeah, Newsom Leaney would never allow that.
I like that. Mussolini.
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna hopefully be touring a lot of SoCal next year, including San Diego and around your parts. So
Dude,
we definitely got to stay in touch and get you on the guest list, and you can come. Shit, do you ever do stand up?
Dude, okay, so I wanted to talk to you specifically about this because obviously you're open about your political thoughts and all that stuff. Okay, I've been doing open mics for like, I don't know, 10 years. I've done so many open mics, I can't even keep track. I'd never actually done like a full-blown stand-up show. And then not to get into crazy detail about this, but I do think you might find this interesting. I was at a TPUSA event in Dallas of this year, and there was a guest running late, and Charlie Kirk, who thankfully has a lot of trust in me and has shown that over and over again, was like, "Hey man, we have a late guest. Can you get on stage and kill 20 minutes?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Stretch.
Yeah. And so, I had done open mics all over the place, but open mics, there's like maybe 15 people there.
All comedians too.
All comedians who are thinking about their own thing in their own head, so they're not paying attention to you. They're not laughing. And so I go from that to I get thrown on stage in front of 2,500 people and just have to go. And so that was like my first stand-up gig. And then thankfully they let me do another one at their SAS event, the Student Action Summit in Florida. And so I started messaging comedy clubs like, hey, I've got this footage, because the deal with comedians, right? A lot of times is it's difficult to get footage of themselves in order to book gigs. And I tried to book different places, just even opening acts. And I think because when you look on my social media account, I don't have any emphatic evidence of this. Nobody got back to me. Like nobody was like, oh yeah, we'll take that. And the footage I think is pretty good. And so, I finally got fed up with getting cold rejected, of just not getting any messages back. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go book my own show. And so we went to actually just happened this Friday, went to a bar, sold it out, and did an hour and filmed it all. And that's probably going to be, a special that I put out. And just, I know that's not the way that things generally happen in that, stand-up comedy world, but that's, I guess, how I've got to make it happen, considering the bias, I think, against my political leanings.
Well, yeah, man. There's no rules. Like, I definitely came.
Dude.
I definitely. Yeah. It's the Wild Wild West. Like, it's not the 1980s anymore. Like, it's not like featuring like. You've seen him on a sitcom. He's the brother. He was on season 3, and he was on 2 episodes
on MTV,
and he'll be at the Chicago Improv, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Like, that's not the thing anymore. Yeah. Like, I just sold out like a whole weekend in San Antonio with no radio interview or promo, and I know all the DJs. I know all the people from the radio, and for whatever reason,
we have no evidence of it. We're just assuming.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Many people say there were shenanigans involved. but no, man. Hey, props to you for taking action, taking charge, and shit. There were times when and even if you decide later, like, okay, I'm just gonna chop it up and test them on social media. Like, there's so many different ways to release your stuff. Who knows? Charlie might be like, hey man, that's badass, but let's reshoot it in this other venue.
That's what I'm hoping for, honestly.
Hell yeah.
It'll end up on, there's no telling. Daily Caller, there's YouTube, there's so many different ways, these days. And I find that open mics are counterproductive for me, myself.
Interesting.
Because
so you try out all your new stuff in front of, the crowd.
Yes, and that is because, like my buddy Javi Luna, he pretty much, the way he puts it is, by the time you have a good reading of your instrument, meaning you get feedback, and you have a really good sense structurally as to like what joke is going to work. Like, is there something there? Are the punchlines good? Is the misdirection there? Is the structure and all that? And he's like, then you just got to trust it and let it rip, because sometimes in those open mics, you just pick up bad habits and lose confidence because you're not getting an accurate feedback loop.
Totally.
But yeah, man, if I'm in SoCal, stay in touch and come to a guest spot and test it out in front of
an opener. You just let me know. I know you probably got a laundry list of people that are jumping at the bit to do that. But if you ever need one, I'm there.
Do you do a lot of political stuff, or is that mainly or?
It's probably half and half. I think it's a lot of cultural stuff too, which, culture is upstream of politics. So I think in total, like everything is politics if you want to look at it that way. But I'd be careful to not spend 45 minutes ripping on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, even though they deserve it. There's a lot of stuff about, interactions with my wife, just your typical comedy stuff, topics. And so, yeah, man, not all political by any stretch of the imagination. Actually, probably less than I marketed it. I was like, in order to sell out this show, it was like the Star Spangled Banter tour, which, politics, because I'm a political guy. And then I hope people aren't upset that I did 45 minutes on just stuff that happens.
No, I think it'll be refreshing for like people that follow you for the political commentary, as long as it's funny. Right at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Hey, dude. So you're one of our top. So we have a Discord with our like hardcore fans, right? And you're at the top of the list of the wish list, the guest wish list. So I'm happy that we're able to get you on the podcast.
That's so nuts,
isn't it? Right? Like shout out to all the RPT members. But
thank you.
You said just now that you recently got into the commentating thing. How did you go, or where did you go from? Was it like the actual working boots on the ground to the commentating thing, or how did you migrate over to digital content?
So everything I think I've done, and I would tell this to a bunch of people that are trying to get into this sort of field, and I don't know if that's the objective of people listening to this sort of thing, but I think the biggest thing was I knew structurally what I was doing. Like it wasn't like I'm just going to set up a camera and start ranting in my car, and that works for some people, but I came out of, as a political consultant, my kind of field was the production and ad buy and social media stuff for all of these big candidates. So I was pretty familiar with all the tech side of video stuff. Obviously, you guys are running a podcast. You understand audio, visual stuff, all of the things that make this thing work. And so with that, I was tired of dealing with candidates. Candidates from any side of the aisle are belligerently annoying. And so I was trying to get out of that field in a way. But at the same time, it was a conversation with my wife of like, hey, are we cool if I kind of take this career shift into this commentating world, knowing the kind of heat that gets brought with it? We were in agreement. But at the same time, I was like, we're going to do it right. Like everything is going to be crisp, clean, and cut well. And so the first thing that I was doing was not, again, like ranting on social media, because everybody rants on social media. It was like this scripted, structured, almost like TV episode type thing that I knew, and I don't want to sound arrogant, but I knew it was going to work. It was just a matter of where and what platform and how it was going to work. And I was confident in that coming from that production background. So the way I got into it was very much like analyzing the market, so to speak, and figuring out what the market needed, what I enjoyed doing, and what the connection there was. And that's kind of how I got into this political commentating space. None of my thoughts are anything new. Like I've been thinking the same thing for a long time. This is just kind of the culmination of having some of the knowledge I had from the political campaign background and putting it to the commentary background.
What kind of hate do you get, like from the like how it is, man? Sometimes like you mentioned earlier, anytime you dip your hat or your toe in the politics, people get triggered, and it's like, oh, you need to stay out of that, or that's so divisive, or you're not allowed to talk about that. What kind of stuff do people say?
Okay, well, to comment on your one point, which I think is actually fascinating, people thinking you shouldn't comment, stay out of that sort of thing. Here's the problem with big government and big politics is that government is in every facet of our life. So unfortunately, I am the type of person that's like, hey, let's leave politics out of this sort of stuff. But that's how I am naturally. But it's become so pervasive that it's almost unavoidable. Like if the government wasn't so big and controlling of so many facets of our lives, we wouldn't need to talk about it. But unfortunately, what can you talk about nowadays that doesn't involve the government at some facets? So there's that. In terms of like the hate stuff, I mean, it comes from all over the place. I get called a white supremacist / like a shill for white supremacy a lot. But dude, the thing is, like, so it's interesting now knowing a lot of these commentators and how upset some of them get, but also some, the different way that people react to this sort of like online hatred, right? Like I now honestly look at all of the hate stuff. I was just reading a bunch of stuff to my wife is not allowed to read my Instagram comments anymore because she gets all like personally defensive. It's like, why are they saying these mean things about you? But I look at it as an opportunity. Like if somebody says something ignorant in my DMs or on any of the comments, I don't get mad about it anymore. Well, I never really got mad at it to begin with because I look at it like this is an opportunity for somebody to change their mind, right? That's the whole reason why I'm doing this. Like I have no, bigger aspirations than being able to change the hearts and minds of people to think more logically and more freedom oriented. And so when you get the hate stuff, I almost welcome it to an extent of hoping to bring somebody into the fold that wasn't there to begin with. And you've seen so many of those stories of, I used to be a leftist and now I think this. Like, yeah, like that's the goal. The whole goal is to get the people that are going to leave those nasty comments on the internet to maybe open their eyes. And not all of them are going to, but I think that's the type of hate that I get and how I try to deal with it.
What are some ways that you do, I guess, techniques or strategy when you're trying to, like when you rebut one of the hateful comments, like how do you go about persuading and red pilling them?
Well, okay, so I'm sure you've experienced the difference between hateful comments that are open to negotiation and then hateful comments just for the sake of being hateful, right? The people that are just for the sake of being hateful, I don't really try and argue with them at all. I just mostly comment something back snarky and sarcastic and leave it there. But there are people that'll say, like, they'll leave these big, long comments. And as far as like strategy goes, there's been like last week, there was somebody, I left a comment on Gavin Newsom's thing, kind of like talking about whatever it is I was talking about. Somebody left this big old comment. I responded back and they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were actually going to respond back. Then they DM'd me and I was like, I'm more than willing to have an open conversation about, whatever it is you want to talk about. Like I've got answers. I don't know everything, but I'm more than willing to have this conversation. And I think that's a big thing that's missing in this online culture. And obviously I don't have time to sit there and respond to everybody, but some of the people that seem genuinely interested, the strategy, I guess, is just talk to them. And a lot of them, again, given our political bent or political side of the aisle, the facts are on our side in pretty much all of the cases. So it really just comes down to whether or not a person is willing to accept logic as a basis for their worldview.
Yeah, so, it's funny because right now somebody's doing a podcast with Samantha Bee, and they're saying the complete opposite thing of what we're saying, and they're like, well, the facts are on our side. So how do you even argue with anybody like that?
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I would love to go. So that's the thing too, is and I would imagine, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this? Like if Samantha Bee said, hey, Chingo, come on my podcast, would you go? I would go.
First of all, I'd be like, I don't know who the hell Samantha Bee is. she's better off on my podcast. I don't know who the hell that is, bro.
All right, well, what about like Trevor Noah? Would you go on the Daily Show?
You know what? This is a very good question.
We've actually played these exercises recently on the podcast. Yeah,
this is a very good question. First of all, Trevor Noah needs to come on my show because he ain't got a show no more. Well, I'm scheduled to do a bus tour thing with Texas Latino conservatives down in the Rio Grande Valley, making some pit stops. And they mentioned, they're like, hey, there's going to be a reporter from CNN on the bus, and don't worry if you don't want to deal with him. Like, the head guy will is going to give them the info so that they can show what the shift that's happening down here and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just kind of like, I was like, all they do is take you out of context and misquote you and try to frame you to look bad. So maybe if the Trevor Noah thing was like, is it going to be unedited? I'm going to have to be like Trump and bring my own camera so I can release that shit.
That makes sense.
Only because like they'll find a way to do a gotcha.
Yeah.
Like I was watching this thing last night where what's the guy, Jon Stewart, is that his name?
Yeah.
He did a whole thing about what is a woman, and it's for his show. I guess it's the new season on his Apple TV show, and he was showing a compilation of like ain't number two genders, and like all the Republican conservative politicians saying like this gender ideology and this rhetoric and whatever happened to science and biology, and his punchline is they play a cut up compilation of like ain't number two genders and like this rhetoric, and then it just cuts to Jon Stewart like,
dude, it's so funny you say Jon Stewart. This is one of those life's not real moments. So the reason I even mentioned Samantha Bee was because, well, first of all, her show recently got canceled, maybe like a couple months ago, right?
Yeah.
And there's this tweet going kind of viral again from Jon Stewart. It was like pre-2016, and the caption was like, what the left thought about Joe Biden prior to the election, or prior to, this current year's. And it was Jon Stewart. Samantha Bee was like a correspondent, and she had handprints on her tits. One was like a white one. Did you see, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And the other one was like, looked like jelly. And the whole thing just comes down to, so what was Joe Biden doing? Because Samantha Bee interviews Joe Biden, right, in the sketch or whatever. And it's like, well, he was writing with his right hand. He was writing on a chalkboard that I will not grow up women any longer. And on the left hand, he was eating strawberry preserves with no utensils. And she's got the handprints on her chest. Everyone's laughing. And then when he left, he actually shook my hand and said goodbye. And she turns around, she's got handprints on her ass. And these are the kind of things that they were talking about. Jon Stewart was talking about, from the left just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Meaning, meaning you're saying that they used to critique Biden in 2016?
They used to make fun of him, prior to 2016 when he was the VP.
Well, being that he is inappropriate with women. Like, that was a thing on their side until they decided to not make fun of him anymore, randomly.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, I got a couple jabs for the Biden crime family during my comedy set. And sometimes people know who Hunter Biden is. Sometimes they don't. And I don't know, maybe I need to like punch up these jokes, but sometimes people get this impression that like, oh, it's just, it makes people uncomfortable. And are you trying to be divisive if you're just picking on the Democrats? And it's like, oh, all of a sudden we're not allowed to touch it's like, this is America. We got free speech. And in stand-up comedy, this is the last hope to have some kind of truth, and all of a sudden you're not allowed to talk about the president. This must have just changed in 2020.
Did you guys see? So I don't know, pride myself on trying to understand the broader 30,000 foot view of what's happening in media and culture and all that sort of stuff. Have you noticed the last couple weeks the media, the very, very friendly to Joe Biden media, has been really, really more harsh on him? Like Saturday Night Live, I don't know if you saw their cold open, like their first thing was like, hey, Joe Biden can't think anymore, which is not something they would have done 6 months ago. Like, what do you think is going on there?
Well, for starters, SNL, I'll say they're on the verge of just cutting that whole show altogether. So they're just really grabbing at straws. But that's just one of my opinions.
Is that a theory? Or
no, yeah. I think Lorne Michaels himself was talking about like we might just need to be done with SNL.
All that woke shit, man. Go woke, go broke. I was actually in my hotel room in Las Vegas, and that must have been after the show. And it was me and a couple comedians hanging out watching. And they're on the other side of the political spectrum, right? So I'm sitting here watching, and they're like, see, yeah, that's the way to, make fun of the left and have it be funny or whatever. And I was just so surprised. I was like, wow, SNL's actually going there?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to go down this rabbit hole, but I think there is a push from the media as a whole. I don't know if you want to get conspiratorial on whether or not all of this stuff is designed in such a way to do.
Put your tinfoil hat on. Put it on. Where's it at?
There we go. Let's do
it. After the midterms, I think, a lot of the Washington insiders are talking about how are they going to get Joe Biden to announce that he's not running, right? Because you can't do that before the midterms, I guess, politically. But everybody's knowing that he's not going to run. Dude is going to be 82 years old when he's running for president. That'd be insane. And obviously his mental faculties aren't there. And so I think a lot of this media push over the last like 2 or 3 weeks, which has really been like, they haven't hit Biden this hard. And Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes doing his interview with him, like, a year ago would have never hit him that hard on like his mental acuity. Jake Tapper's doing an interview with him that's airing like tonight. Like, I think it's going to get really bad from the lefty side, not because they actually believe any of this stuff, but because they're trying to get him to announce, yeah, I'm not going to run sooner so that they can get somebody else.
Here's the deal, folks.
In the position.
I'm not scared of ghosts.
I'm faster than most.
Yeah. And I don't think they have anybody. I think they want to do that sooner than later because they don't have anybody. Like, who on the Democrat side is like, yeah, this is a good presidential candidate?
No, it's all about Gavin, right?
No.
Or Hillary or Gavin?
No. Gavin would get. I want Gavin to be the nominee for the Democratic Party because he will lose 49 states.
Well, hey, he wants to debate what's his name? DeSantis real bad.
Should he do it? Like, should DeSantis do it? Because obviously that's a political play. But like, I'm thinking like, look, DeSantis has all the facts on his side. Like, he's got. Like, also, DeSantis isn't a dumb guy. I think DeSantis does a very good job at, I don't necessarily say hiding the fact, but remember, DeSantis went to Harvard and Yale. Like, he's not a stupid guy. Gavin went to Santa Clara University. I'm not trying to knock people on where they went to school, but, you know,
he went to East LA Community College off of Atlantic and Whittier.
Yeah, which is, you know, I'm not trying to like be that kind of person because I'm not a big college advocate, but at the same time, like Gavin's saying, "Oh, I'll debate DeSantis." I think if DeSantis says, "Let's go for it," Gavin would be like, wait, I thought we were just trying to get TV time here. I didn't know we were actually going to do this."
Well, that's one thing that's interesting that you bring to the table is like you mentioned, you have the background. Like before the commentary, you have the background and the strategy and the messaging, so you're able to kind of look at it like you're analyzing sports in a way. You know?
That's what I say to people. Yeah. I say to people, like, I look at politics like sports, and like I have my favorite NFL team, but at the same time, it would be stupid of me to go into a game against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and not say, "Oh, Patrick Mahomes is really, really good at this," because I think it helps your team win more, right? I'm not a type of guy that will say like, well. Okay, so I dislike Nancy Pelosi. I think she's super cynical, but at the same time, like, I'm not afraid to say she's good at what she does. Like, I disagree with her on policy and everything like that, but she is a snake, a backstabbing snake that is very, very talented at the job she's tasked at doing. And I don't think it's good for my side of the aisle to just pretend that she's a dundering bumblehead that doesn't know anything. Like, she's good, and we should acknowledge that, I think, from a political standpoint so that we can develop strategies around accounting for that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's too much honesty. People aren't trying to be honest these days. They're really not trying to be introspective that way. They just want to attack and say, fuck you, your side sucks. But you mentioned you're not a big advocate of college. So can you expand on that? Because we talk about that all the time too. If you had kids right now that were getting ready to go into, like, let's just say they're freshmen, you know, they always start passing out the stuff like, oh, let's start looking at what schools you're going to go to. What would you be telling them?
I would tell them at 18 years old, and this would be different for different types of people. I've always been kind of an outside of the box type of person. And I think I recognized that pretty early. I did go to college, but in hindsight, you know, I'm thinking like, all right, rather than spend $100,000 going to this school, what if 18, 19, 20-year-old me got $100,000 to start a business? Where would I be now? And that's the same kind of mentality I would tell to my kids. Now, my wife is a therapist, which requires going to school and then going to grad school. So if they want to go into a career like being a doctor or something in the medical field to where like you need a college degree, great. But if you're going to go to school for like business, dude, I couldn't think of a worse decision, right? Yeah. Like what is business? Like what is business? I don't know. Like I have a business degree, and what I learned from a business degree is how to be on the board of a Fortune 500 company, something that I will not do until I'm in my 60s. Okay, so what do I do now with this business degree? Well, the answer is you just go figure it out. And I've learned more in the world of business and in owning, you know, a couple properties and all that sort of stuff. I learned more doing that than 30 hours in a classroom, right? Like, and you know that, and I'm sure that's the same experience on your end too. Like you just literally get out there and experience the world. Like that's how you learn stuff that isn't an exact science. Like again, medical school, fine, that's whatever. But like studying communications, like just communicate with people like that. You're gonna suck at it originally, like, right? Like if you're my first couple open mics that I did as a stand-up like sucked. I didn't understand any of the dynamics of the room. I didn't know anything. And guess what? You just do it more and you learn more. That's for, I don't know, 80% of the majors out there. That's what you just go do whatever it is that you think you're going to do. And on top of that, it doesn't cost you $100,000 to do that.
Yeah, my story is literally the same exact thing. I went to Trinity University in San Antonio, business administration, concentration in marketing. And really the only thing I really got out of it besides the school loans and the bills, which won't get pardoned for me, is I got a chance to do college radio, which kind of got my foot in the door to kind of, I parlayed that into show business. And then also there was one good class, entrepreneurship. It only met on Wednesdays, like at 6 p.m. And the people that taught it were two entrepreneurs who were alumni. So these dudes, you only had one project. It's like they brought in a different CEO or VP or just somebody like the Blue Bell ice cream people from Texas, just different people every Wednesday. Like a dude, they had a landscaping company, took it public. And then your only project was you had to turn in a business plan at the end of the year based on all the little things they've been teaching you about, like scaling up and, show me, how like, okay, you want a pet store? Okay, that's cool. I don't want a family owned pet store. I want you to present something you could fucking franchise and we could scale it. So besides that, it was kind of like, I fell victim to like, ay, mijo, you're the first one in the familia to make it to college. And I was like, fuck. I had no idea, I had no idea that in hindsight, it's like, bro, you're better off learning a trade, not getting in debt. And, if you want to do jujitsu, do jujitsu. You want to do stand-up, do stand-up. You want to do this, like, just do the things you want to do. And it doesn't require some professor and some punk-ass textbook.
Dude, when you're in town, I want to kick it because I feel like we're the same person, just
one's Polynesian.
One's Polynesian, different ethnic backgrounds. Because I also saw you put out music.
Yeah,
right.
I see you got keyboards and stuff in the back,
dude. So that was my job. My job,
your jam
during off years, right, was being a musician. So in the consulting world, right, you run campaigns every other year, so it's really cyclical. So like campaign years, we'd run races and make a decent amount of money. And the next year, I went and played bars, like country bars and music, and put out stuff. And I think what you said at the very, very beginning, I thought was like the thing that I've been trying to nail into other people. There's no rules. Like there's no rules. Like you can do a stand-up tour and then a concert tour and then be a political commentator on Newsmax. There's no rules that say you can't do that. And I feel like everybody in this commentating world is still stuck in 10 years ago of like, well, I do this and I put on a suit and I talk about politics. Like, yeah, okay, go put out a hip hop album too. Like, there's no rules that say you can't. And I think I don't know, dude. It looks like you're kind of on like that front end of like doing all the things. There's like you and like Childish Gambino, and he doesn't talk about the politics thing, doing stand up and music.
Well, in a way, when he had that, "This is America," and the visuals and the lyrics, it's kind of like, okay, well, what you saying, bro? You sounding anti-American to me, my boy.
It's funny you say Chingo's ahead of the curve because, I don't know if you know this, but Kanye once asked Chingo Bling for a photo.
Really?
Yeah, this is true. I was just kind of like, he's an up-and-coming producer, I guess. I didn't even bother getting a copy of the photo.
We need that photo. Somebody on the internet, please find it.
I'm sure one of Kanye's friends.
Yeah, when he's an up-and-coming political commentator nowadays, right? Like he's following in your footsteps. Maybe he'll try stand-up next.
It is so amazing how Kanye just saying white lives matter, it just brought out the racist in people. I mean, I'm talking about black racists, white liberal racists, all the racists came out like, no, they don't. You can't say that. That takes away from the BLM. That takes away from the plight of black people, and that's demeaning, and somehow it's racist to say. And I just get a kick out of watching people do the mental gymnastics and work themselves into a pretzel, trying to figure out how Kanye is bad. Like, oh, that guy, man, he's bipolar. Dude, he's off his meds, bro. You know, he's just so polarizing, so divisive, and this and that. And dude, why is he hanging with Candace Owens, bro? She's clearly a white supremacist.
So stupid.
Now he's in hot water for some other stuff. But go ahead.
Yeah, and that other stuff was not great, which I was kind of like saying.
I'm not touching that.
My show a couple weeks ago was like, hey, like I know Kanye is saying some good stuff now, but also let's not hold this guy on too high of a pedestal because he can go off the rails and kind of did. But one of my favorite things about that, and then just in general, is watching bombs get chucked, proverbial bombs of rhetoric and such, watching bombs get chucked and then seeing who's going to react, right? Because when I saw the picture of Candace and Kanye in their White Lives Matter shirt, my brain instantly went like, don't take the bait, Twitter. And they took the bait, and it's just fun to watch at this point. And they're not gonna, them taking the bait isn't gonna stop people from, or it's only going to embolden other people to, chuck more bombs, and they're gonna take the bait again. And same thing with our side too.
What do you
AOC system? What's up?
What do you mean take the bait?
Like
all the lefties meltdowns?
Yeah. Like when I got to be careful how I say this because I don't disagree with really anything that they're doing at the moment.
Not a lot of people listen to this show, brother. You good?
No, but I think it's interesting when people do something outlandish for the sake of being outlandish. Now, obviously, Candace is crazy smart, and Kanye is, a musical genius in his own rights. But they know what they're doing, right? They understand the temperature in the room, and that raises the temperature significantly. If I were on the lefty side, I would look at that and hopefully roll my eyes and go, all right, let's not touch that. That'll be gone in a couple seconds. But since they didn't and had a freak out, that to me is taking the bait of raising the temperature. And like, dude, don't do it. If you know that the action is intended to provoke you, don't be provoked. Don't be another statistic. But like so many other times, they just keep taking the bait on that. And I try to say the same thing on our side too. When somebody says something, nuts, I kind of want to be like, hey, let's, they're not serious. We know they're not serious. They know they're not serious. Let's not make them into a bigger fixture on their own side by pretending that they are serious.
Yeah, the way I look at it, like when I see stuff like that on Twitter, because I'm tempted to retweet a lot of stuff. I'm tempted to chime in on a lot of stuff, and it's number feds on Twitter anyway, so you gotta even be careful like what you like even.
Yeah.
But all the agencies are on there, ladies and gentlemen. So I look at it like what's noise, what's signal. Right? It's almost like I got to pick and choose.
Good.
I got to pick and choose because some of the stuff is all distraction, or it's kind of like, like there's just so much to be outraged over. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe this lady in Spain said, she's attacking the right. Well, whatever, right? Or there's so much stuff going on. It's like, okay, let me just see what I want to force multiply and
noise versus signal. I've never heard that. I'm gonna use. That's great.
Well, Steve Bannon says it a lot on War Room.
Oh, okay.
And there's different ways to interpret it, but you know what? I apply that to certain things. Like for example, if you're doing stand up and you're on stage, there's extra words people throw in, the ums and the setup gets clunky, things get too wordy, and you throw in that extra tag right before the other thing, and you step on your on your punchline, and it's almost like, bro, that's just noise. Like stick to the signal part. That's really gonna make the impact.
Greg Gutfield, who I don't think Greg does stand up, but he was talking about his kind of process. And it was heartening to see that it was like, oh, this is like kind of what I do. He's like, I like writing something down and then editing it down and then editing it down and then editing it down to where it's like this 100-word thought becomes a 15-word statement. And that's what makes the impact. And whether or not you're trying to be funny or impactful, I think it's kind of the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's weird that one of my favorite quotes is from Ocean's 11, I think, where they're trying to prepare Matt Damon to like go in the thing. He says, "Don't use 5 words when 4 words will do." Like, yeah,
That's great.
That's how you communicate ideas, and try to make it as simplified as possible, but also don't lose the context. And that's where I think the talent comes in, in comedy or in communication, just in general.
Facts.
Do you ever find yourself getting paralysis by analysis, trying to break down all this stuff and condense it into short form content?
All the time, 100%. Like every day, I sit there trying to figure out, all right, what's the best way to say this and get across the point I'm trying to get across without just rambling. And sometimes I don't do it well. I think last week, oh shoot, I forget which story we were talking about, but somebody in the comment section saying, "Jobob's rambling today, bad show." And I was like, damn, I agree. I felt it on the show, the live show, rambling and not really getting anywhere. Like, you can have long-winded statements as long as it's kind of following the path to the direction you're trying to go. But I was just like trying to pull in so many different things, and I was just like, this
happens.
Yeah,
this is a lot.
But also,
I know.
When there's dead air, like Bill Burr famously said a long time ago, like sometimes you just gotta let dead air happen, and you just pause. And sometimes the dead air kind of goes with what you're saying if you're trying to form the thought in the moment. You know,
so I know the general. I don't want to say rule. When you go to class in the art of comedy, right? Watching other people do comedy, you learn so much doing it. This wasn't a comedic speech, but I'm going to leave the person's name out of it because I know them and I don't want to step on their toes. They gave a speech and had hilarious jokes. There were jokes that were super funny, but they didn't have the wherewithal to let the joke land. And this person sped right through all of her punchline, and a couple people started to chuckle, and then she would go on. She would go on into the next thing. And I was sitting there watching that, and that was a great mental note of just let it settle, let it sit. And if it's not funny, who cares? You've wasted 3 seconds letting it settle. And if it's funny, then people are going to get a bigger laugh out of it because you don't run through it. And that's another interesting, I don't know, just component of things I've picked up in the political space too, not even in the comedy space.
Well, yeah, it overlaps, right? Because public speaking, there's just different techniques, and you have audiences, and there's the timing and everything. So it definitely overlaps big time.
It's such a weird challenge sometimes for me rhetorically, because I did did an hour of stand up on this last Friday, and this next Friday I got to get a 30-minute political speech, and I'm like, okay, how funny is this supposed to be? How much political stuff is this supposed to be? Where's the line between politics and comedy? And also, are people expecting this to be funny? I don't know. And it's a really interesting thing to kind of toy with in my own head to try and figure out what direction I'm supposed to go, especially in these various forums.
I mean, at the end of the day, bro, it's your brand. You know what I mean? So, and it's always good to stand out from the rest of the lineup. And I've only gotten asked to come speak at a few political type things. Like there was one in San Antonio where Governor Abbott was like the headliner, if you will. Yeah. But I still got to be me. I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm like Joe Rogan, bro. Like I'm just like nonpartisan, bro. You know what I mean? I've transcended, I don't need party affiliation, brother. I'm kind of like a podcaster who have my own platform. But basically I try to do me because at the end of the day, bro, like in all the different lanes and categories and from music to acting to whatever, I always try to find an angle. I always try to like pivot and make it uniquely, distinctly my voice. So when Chingo's going to do a podcast, okay, well, how's that going to be? When Chingo's going to be asked to speak somewhere, is it going to be kind of like stand up? And I kind of do try to blur the lines to where some people are like, oh, dude, man, this guy was doing stand up versus like, oh, he had a really funny speech or his talk was. And when I did the thing where Governor Abbott was, I was like, do I stand? I'm still toying with this part. Do I present it behind the podium like everyone else? Or do I kind of, in this case, I'm gonna step around and I'm gonna just do it like it's stand up?
Well, so I've run into this a couple times where there's a mic on the podium and they don't give you a handheld. And I'm like, this, all right. Like I've got jokes here, but do they land if I'm behind a podium acting like this is a political speech? Like, I don't know. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I think,
know, man.
I think it depends on the situation. So when I did the thing where Governor Abbott was in San Antonio, I chose to not be stuck behind the podium. That's just a choice I made in the moment, just based on, I just kind of felt like there's some physical things and I need them to see as much of me as possible and not be so limited.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see possibly even the next time I do this, just stick behind the podium, because we've seen like roasts, like a Jeff Ross or any of those roasts. Yeah, they land. It's just a different dynamic. Like you're not being physical and like acting out a bunch of stuff. You're just kind of staying put and letting the words do the work. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to my next one. I think it's in like 2 weeks, I believe.
Is it a political thing?
Yes. So it's down the Rio Grande Valley, and
the 27th, I think. It's a Thursday.
Yeah, and then we're also doing the bus tour.
I was gonna say, Turning Point has a Latino summit on Sunday. Remember, you should have been asked to go there. That would have been great.
Where's it going to be?
Newport Beach, California. They're doing the West Coast Regional Summit, which is Friday, Saturday, and I think it's the Latino Summit on Sunday. Sorry, Latinx.
It's this Sunday?
How dare you?
It's this Sunday. It's probably short notice, but in hindsight, maybe I'll throw your name in there to see if they want to bring you to a couple of stuff, because they do. Dude, Turning Point does the best events, and it's really not even close. Like as a consultant guy, like I used to go to all these events. That's where you network. That's where you get your clients, and they are on the cutting edge of making culture and politics mesh and make it fun, right? Like I've been going to CPAC and not to knock on CPAC because I don't have any problem with them over there, but it's just this old guy fest where speakers talk where we're buttoned up, and like the Turning Point events are just fun.
Yeah, I've heard that, man. I've heard some critiques about the CPAC events. I've heard that like
they had to wear masks at some events.
Yeah, I think masks, and like I think like people like General Flynn, like they're like
you got to come in through the back door.
This guy, and like Mike Lindell's not really invited or stuff like that. But hey, that's neither here nor there. I'd like to kind of like experience and kind of see or whatever. I
was gonna say, dude, there's the big Turning Point event in December, which is off the rails. America Fest. If you've got some time, I think it's the third week of December. I can give you all the info, and I'm sure they'd make it worth your while to stop by.
Cool.
I don't know about that, but I'd love to give you the information and see if you can make it down there.
Yeah,
Phoenix.
Man. Hey, since we're talking about, you're talking about what Turning Point USA does with making it fun, culture and entertainment and all that. I want to kind of humanize you a bit here for the people that loved or love you and wanted to get you on the podcast. Sports and entertainment. In today's environment, what are you keeping up with, if anything, when it comes to sports and entertainment?
I follow most sports, not religiously like a lot of people do, but I'm aware of all of the big happenings. I was super excited and probably got into way too many arguments about the efficacy of Aaron Judge breaking the home run record. That was exciting for me, but at the same time, some people had some bad opinions on whether or not Barry Bonds counts. And then just from a cultural standpoint, I don't know, man. Dude, there's too much TV to watch. Like, 20 years ago, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm super into whatever the big show, Lost at the time. But now there's too much to watch. So, my wife and I, watch a couple episodes of things here and there. But generally speaking, in terms of the entertainment world, I don't know. I like to take in as much as I can, just of really everything. I also, and I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, I, in so many ways, think that politics is just entertainment now.
I'm the same way, dude. I always say it's the best novella ever written.
Well, it's America's pastime. Like, it wasn't like that.
Straight up, dude.
It wasn't like that a long time ago, but now everybody's involved or trying to be involved. And so you want to talk entertainment, like it is the biggest interactive reality show to ever exist.
Where the stakes are high.
Stakes are high.
It's American Idol time like 100. times like 100. Yeah.
It's like, what do you do when you see Kamala Harris up there like, nobody should be going to prison for weed? And you're like, what?
Dude.
What? It's an episode of Veep?
You know what I honestly do? Because I look at this as a sport. I say, please run for president of the United States.
Yeah.
Like, please, for the love of God, run for president. I would love nothing more than to see Kamala Harris lose 48 states and then blame it. Well, because she's a black woman. It's like, no, I know several very, very smart and talented black women that could be president way before her. It's not that. It's because she's an idiot.
Yeah, she already ran the last time.
Remember,
she called Joe racist.
She dropped out of the primary before Iowa.
Yeah,
she didn't even make it to the first caucus. That's because nobody likes her. And so this whole idea that, well, she's the vice president, she's the natural shoo-in for the nomination, like, go for it.
Who
I'm
thinks
all
that?
about it.
People who look at it like archaically, I guess I would say, look at it that way. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, people that aren't paying attention, which, is most people.
True.
Most people aren't paying attention to what's going on, so they would be like, yeah, naturally Kamala Harris. But like, dude, I would love to see Kamala Harris on a debate stage with Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump, whoever ends up being the nominee. That would be so good.
Any chance, 'cause before we move on from entertainment, that you watched Game of Thrones in its prime?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I like asking every person this because Chingo never got into it. And now we got House of the Dragon is out. Have you been watching that?
Yes. But back to Game of Thrones, I saw a blog, I think. I don't know what I was reading, but I read this big, long thing of how amazing it is that Game of Thrones went to the biggest #1 cultural thing that it was like the last big show that everybody gathered on Sunday nights to watch. And the last season was so bad that it is no longer even in the conversation of best show. At least I don't think.
Yeah, it's true. It's very upsetting. But House of the Dragon, on the other hand, debuted as, like, again, the #1 show watched on the debut, I think it was. But I wanted to say that The King reminds me a lot of Joe Breezy, if you've been keeping up with every episode of House of the Dragon. Have you by chance?
I'm one behind. I haven't watched last night's episode.
Oh, bro, then never mind. I'm not going to spoil it for you. Enjoy the next episode, all right? And if you watch it, it's Joe Biden is playing the king in House of the Dragon. That's all I'm going to say.
Just forgetting everything? Is that what you're saying?
You'll enjoy it.
Hey, I'm curious. Were you raised conservative, or were you one of the people?
So my dad's an immigrant, or my dad was an immigrant. He moved here when he was 6, I think, to Hawaii, and then to Southern California when I think he was in like junior high or late elementary school. And I think that's an interesting question because in terms of labeling, I don't know what labels are in terms of conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat. I don't know that I necessarily fit a label super, super well. Personally, I have a lot of conservative values, pretty much all of them, but I don't think it was ever pushed as like, this is what this is. This is a hardworking immigrant family who understood the value of dedication to your work, to your family, to your craft, and that just inherently becomes quote unquote conservative, whether or not that's just what it was. It wasn't any, we saved money. We weren't irresponsible in really any facet of life. And that's how I was raised. Again, not necessarily overtly quote unquote conservative, but just like, living in a way that passed all of the value of personal responsibility. Like, I think that's what it was. So, and that comes again from a guy who was born in a hut on a beach on an island, not having any of the things, then coming to America and being so, and I don't want to speak for my dad necessarily, but I think it was him being so like, whoa, look at how awesome this place is. This is great. Like, let's keep it going, as opposed to, a lot of people nowadays who are, look at how terrible the United States is. I can't imagine how us ever going forward like this.
What island is your father? Was your father
Samoa?
from?
He's Samoan. So my dad's Samoan, my mom's Irish, and my name is from Alabama. So
Nice.
yeah, man. So that's, I guess, I don't know.
Hey, I got one more question for you before we let you go from today. Your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard leaving the Democratic Party?
Okay, what kind of thoughts? Like, I think she's right to do it. I think it's about time. But if I were looking this solely as a political sports thing or if I were a betting person and sports betting or political betting was legal, I would say that she's angling for a vice presidential pick or secretary of state.
I said that in our Discord.
Yeah, if I were to lay out 2024 election and make predictions, I would imagine Ron DeSantis gets the nomination. I'm still like 50-50 on whether or not Trump runs. That's not to say that I want him to run or don't want him to run. I just think dude has been sitting on his golf course for the last couple of years going like, yeah, that whole being president thing is a lot of work that I don't want to do. And I would imagine DeSantis, who's a fantastic candidate, would be unstoppable. And Tulsi Gabbard leaving the Democratic Party, making all this big waves, would be a pretty good position to be picked as the vice president. If not her, maybe Nikki Haley, also very, very talented former governor. So that's kind of what I think about that.
So it sounds like you saying DeSantis Gabbard.
Yes, yeah, right?
Maybe. I don't know. Tulsi Gabbard's also Samoan too. So, maybe we're related and maybe, I can get an into the White House there. So maybe it's out of personal self-interest that I wouldn't mind Tulsi Gabbard being.
What up, fam?
Shit, I'm gonna try to pass for something, Filipino or somebody, so I can be invited to the cookout.
What's up? Cool,
badass, man. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work, and we'll definitely link up and hit some comedy stages for sure.
Yeah, man. I'm super down. You let me know. Thanks for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
And give everybody your socials and your website and where we can listen to and follow along.
Just type in JOBOB on literally any platform: Twitter, Getter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Truth Social, Ibble, all of the podcast platforms. Just JOBOB, and you'll be able to find
where do you live stream?
Anywhere.
Where do you live stream to?
Right now, we live stream the Daily Caller show. So there's a couple different things going on. I do a show with the Daily Caller on every single weekday at like 8:15 to 8:30ish for however long that show goes, and that's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and also Getter now. And then I do my own thing from this studio here sporadically and randomly, and that's also to those same places.
Badass. Okay, brother, keep up the great work.
Dude, yeah, would love to stay in touch. Really, really appreciate you guys having me on, and love what you guys are doing.
For sure.
Thanks, brother. Have a good one, man.
For sure.
Thanks, man.